It was a crisp evening in San Francisco, the kind where the fog danced between buildings and the city's energy hummed in the air. Jackson, a seasoned taxi driver in his mid-50s, leaned back in his seat, tapping his fingers impatiently on the steering wheel. Business had been slow, and he was itching for a longer, high-paying fare to make up for the dull day. His car, a slightly beat-up sedan, had seen better days, much like his own demeanor. As he glanced at his phone, a ride request popped up. It was only a couple of miles away, ending in a residential area. Great. Another short ride, he muttered under his breath, reluctantly accepting. Short rides meant meager tips, and he was already annoyed at the thought. Still, work was work. Pulling up to the pickup location, Jackson noticed a man waiting on the sidewalk. The man was casually dressed in a black t-shirt and jeans, with a slight scruff on his face. He carried no flashy briefcase or designer accessories, just an air of calm confidence. As the man opened the door and slid into the back seat, Jackson barely glanced at him. "Where to?" he asked, his tone clipped. "Just down to Marina Green," the man replied, his voice calm. Jackson raised an eyebrow. Marina Green was barely a 10-minute drive. He couldn't help himself. "That's it? You could have walked, buddy," he scoffed, chuckling under his breath. The passenger smiled slightly but didn't respond to the remark. Instead, he looked out of the window, unfazed by Jackson's attitude. The driver, emboldened by the man's silence, continued. "You know, people like you are the reason guys like me barely make ends meet. A 10-minute ride? What am I supposed to do with that?" The passenger finally spoke, his voice even and measured. "I imagine you'd take me where I need to go, as your job requires." The comment caught Jackson off guard. There was no malice in the words, just a simple truth that he couldn't argue with. Annoyed, he fell silent and focused on the road. As they drove through the city, Jackson couldn't help but glance in the rearview mirror occasionally. Something about the man seemed familiar, but he couldn't quite place it. His casual demeanor didn't scream wealth or power, yet there was an undeniable presence about him. "So, what do you do?" Jackson asked, breaking the silence, his tone still laced with mild irritation. The man hesitated, then replied simply, "A bit of everything." "Sounds vague," Jackson muttered under his breath. The rest of the ride was quiet, save for the faint hum of the radio and the occasional honk from passing cars. When they finally arrived at Marina Green, Jackson pulled over. The meter read $12.50. As the passenger reached for his wallet, Jackson couldn't resist one last jab. "Don't worry about tipping. It's not like this ride was worth much anyway." The man paused for a moment, then smiled. "Oh, I think it's worth quite a bit." He handed Jackson a folded bill and stepped out of the car. Without a word, he began walking toward the waterfront. Curious, Jackson unfolded the bill and froze. His heart raced as he stared at what he held in his hand. It wasn't just a generous tip. It was something that would change his entire day, and possibly his perspective. As Jackson stared at the folded bill, he felt his breath catch in his throat. It wasn't a $10 or $20 tip, nor was it even $100. It was a crisp $1,000 bill. For a moment, his brain struggled to process the sheer generosity of the passenger who had just walked away. "This has to be a mistake," he muttered to himself, gripping the steering wheel tightly. He scanned the area, hoping to catch another glimpse of the man, but he was already a speck in the distance, disappearing toward the water's edge. Still in disbelief, Jackson's mind raced. Was this some kind of prank? Did the man leave the wrong bill by accident? Or worse, was it counterfeit? Only one way to find out, Jackson decided, driving toward the nearest bank. On the way, he couldn't help but replay the interaction in his mind. The man had seemed calm, almost indifferent. There was no grand gesture or flourish when he handed over the bill, just a quiet confidence. Arriving at the bank, Jackson parked hastily and walked in, clutching the bill like it was a fragile artifact. He approached the teller, a young woman with a warm smile. "Hi, I need to check if this is real," Jackson said, placing the bill on the counter. The teller raised an eyebrow but took the bill, examining it under the UV light and running her fingers along its edges. After a few moments, she nodded. "It's real." Jackson let out a breath he didn't realize he'd been holding. The relief was immediate, but quickly replaced by confusion. Why would anyone tip a taxi driver $1,000 for a 10-minute ride? "Did someone give this to you?" the teller asked, sensing his bewilderment. "Yeah," Jackson replied. "Just a passenger. Nothing special." The teller smiled knowingly. "Sounds like you got lucky. Maybe they appreciated your service more than you thought." Jackson couldn't help but scoff at the irony. "Appreciated my service? I was a jerk to the guy the whole ride." The teller shrugged. "Sometimes people surprise you." As Jackson walked back to his car, his mind churned. He couldn't shake the feeling that there was more to this story. The man didn't look like a typical wealthy individual, yet his calm demeanor and the extravagant tip suggested otherwise. Curiosity got the better of him. Pulling out his phone, Jackson opened the rideshare app to check the details of the fare. His eyes widened as he read the name of the passenger, Elon Musk. "No way," he whispered, his hands trembling slightly. He quickly searched Elon Musk's name and compared the photos online to the face he remembered from the rearview mirror. It was an exact match. Jackson leaned back in his seat, stunned. He had spent the entire ride mocking and belittling one of the richest and most influential men in the world. And yet, Musk had responded with kindness and generosity. For the first time in years, Jackson felt a pang of guilt. The man he had dismissed as just another passenger had turned out to be someone extraordinary, not because of his wealth, but because of his character. As he sat there, Jackson realized this moment wasn't just about the money. It was a lesson in humility, kindness, and the unexpected ways people can touch your life. For days, Jackson couldn't shake the encounter with Elon Musk. The $1,000 tip was more than just an unexpected windfall. It was a spark that ignited something in him. He began to question not only his attitude during the ride, but the way he had been living his life. The money wasn't squandered on frivolous purchases or fleeting pleasures. Instead, Jackson used part of it to fix the issues in his taxi: the rattling engine, the peeling seat covers, and the faulty air conditioning. For the first time in years, his vehicle felt as reliable and presentable as it had been on the day he purchased it. But Jackson didn't stop there. He took the remaining funds and did something he never thought he would do. He paid it forward, a new kind of generosity. One evening, Jackson picked up a single mother and her young son. The boy clutched a toy car, its paint chipped and wheels wobbly, while the mother apologized for the short trip. "I'll pay as soon as I can," she said, her voice tinged with embarrassment. Jackson smiled. "Don't worry about it. This one's on me." The woman's eyes widened in disbelief. "Are you sure?" "Absolutely," Jackson replied, feeling a genuine warmth in his chest. "Consider it a little help from someone who's been there." As the woman and her son stepped out of the cab, the boy waved enthusiastically. "Thank you, mister," he called out, his toy car held high. Driving away, Jackson felt something he hadn't experienced in years: a sense of purpose. It wasn't long before the story of Elon Musk's generous tip and Jackson's newfound kindness made its way into the local news. A journalist, intrigued by the viral story, reached out to Jackson for an interview. Sitting in front of the camera, Jackson recounted the moment he realized who Musk was and how the encounter had changed him. "I didn't deserve that tip," Jackson admitted, "but it wasn't about what I deserved. It was about what he saw in me, even when I didn't see it in myself." The interview quickly gained traction, with viewers praising Jackson's decision to pay the kindness forward. Social media lit up with hashtags like "Kindness Pays" and "Elon Effect," and people across the city began sharing their own stories of unexpected generosity. One day, as Jackson was scrolling through his phone, he noticed a notification from Twitter. Elon Musk had mentioned him in a tweet. "Sometimes, the smallest interactions leave the biggest impact. Glad to see kindness spreading." Ripple effect. Jackson's heart raced. He couldn't believe the man who had started it all had taken the time to acknowledge him. From that moment on, Jackson's life took a turn for the better. He wasn't just a taxi driver anymore. He was a symbol of how a single act of kindness could change everything. Months had passed since Jackson's unforgettable ride with Elon Musk, but the effects of that day continued to ripple through his life and the lives of those around him. Inspired by his story, a local nonprofit partnered with him to launch a program called Driven to Kindness, which offered financial assistance for vehicle repairs and organized workshops on customer service and mental health for struggling taxi drivers. Jackson became the face of the campaign, sharing his journey from bitterness to gratitude. His story inspired drivers who had once been competitors to come together and embrace a shared mission of spreading kindness. One morning, while cleaning his cab, Jackson was surprised to see a sleek electric car pull up. As the window rolled down, he was stunned to see Elon Musk step out. Musk explained that he had been following Jackson's story and was deeply moved by its impact. To support the cause, Musk announced a $1 million donation to the Driven to Kindness program, ensuring its growth and reach nationwide. Before leaving, Musk handed Jackson a handwritten note that read, "Kindness isn't just a one-time act, it's a chain reaction. Keep it going." Elon Jackson framed the note as a reminder of the lesson he had learned. With renewed purpose, Jackson continued to drive his cab, noticing how small acts of kindness had started to transform his interactions with passengers. Eventually, he saved enough to start his own ride-sharing company, hiring drivers who needed a second chance. His company, built on principles of kindness and fairness, became a success, and its slogan, "Driven by Kindness," captured its mission perfectly. Jackson's story became a global phenomenon, inspiring millions to believe in the power of kindness. His journey proved that even the smallest gesture could lead to life-changing impact, showing that sometimes a short ride could create a lasting legacy. Elon Musk's gesture and Jackson's transformation continued to echo across the world, making headlines and inspiring countless stories of generosity. People started sharing their own tales of unexpected kindness, tagging the hashtag #DrivenByKindness on social media. The movement sparked a wave of compassion that reached beyond taxi drivers and customers. It impacted people in offices, schools, and communities globally. Musk's initial act of kindness became the spark for a worldwide phenomenon. 1 year later, Jackson was invited to speak at a global conference on sustainable transportation, sharing the stage with Elon Musk. Nervous but determined, Jackson recounted his story, emphasizing the importance of humility, gratitude, and the power of paying it forward. His heartfelt words earned him a standing ovation, with Musk himself applauding the loudest. After the event, Musk surprised Jackson once more by announcing a partnership with his ride-sharing company, incorporating Tesla's electric vehicles into the fleet and providing funding for renewable energy initiatives within the company. As Jackson walked off the stage, he reflected on how far he had come. What had started as an ordinary, frustrating day had turned into a journey of transformation, growth, and impact. From a struggling cab driver burdened by life's challenges to a global ambassador for kindness, Jackson's story proved that even the smallest encounters could lead to profound change. The movement continued to grow, with communities around the world embracing the idea of spreading kindness through their actions. Jackson's life became a testament to the fact that it only takes one moment, one gesture, or one person to change the course of someone's life forever. And it all began with a short ride and an unexpected tip.